Hello, everyone. This is Starzenith33 here at Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, and other platforms. We are also at iHeartRadio, by the way. And so anyway, I wanted to jump in here and talk about the astro weather. I know I did one earlier. Tomorrow I will be doing the Spanish one. It's just right now, it's really late right now. And I normally don't do late podcasts, but I just decided to jump in as the moon just jumped into Sagittarius. So there's some squares. There's a T-square that's going on. So that causes instant attention to situations that are going right or going left or going side. They're going everywhere, right? And so it is about having awareness of what these energies are bringing. So let's jump in there. Okay. So let's talk about what is going on here with the moon in Sagittarius. I wanted to make it playful. The moon in Sagittarius is about humor. It is ruled by Jupiter, which is expansive, but it also reveals, is a revealer at Jupiter. So it reveals a lot of things about Sagittarius, okay? And this is why Sagittarius and Pisces, okay? Because Jupiter is the traditional ruler for Pisces as well. And I find these two signs of Pisces and Sagittarius ruled both by Jupiter, lucky Jupiter. That this is why they're known for having a lot of luck, unless you got some karma to, to meet and stuff. But because they're ruled by Jupiter, they get caught a lot. Okay, they do. They can't hide things. They always get discovered. I find that to have a pattern with that. You're always going to find out something. They're not the best liars, in other words. And this is not pertaining to a certain Pisces, a certain Sagittarius. This is for the collective, okay? This is what I have found out and discovered, and I'm a Pisces myself, okay? So, and I can tell you a story. When I was in elementary, I had a friend that you could tell. That's why I try not to lie as much. But you know what? Sometimes lying is good for business, because you don't want to give everything out as well. And you don't want to be truthful in everything because you're giving all of that for free, right? And you're trying to make your own money. And so it's sometimes good to trick people so they won't know like where you are or, what you're drinking or what you're eating or anything like that. But it is good to be honest as well because that's how trust is built, right? You don't want to be a notorious liar, but you do want to keep some things to yourself and maybe just don't divulge some things, right? So yeah, so I wanted to start off the podcast with a little bit of sense of humor because that is what Sagittarius is, right? Ruled by Jupiter. And I try not to make these podcasts so like deep and dark and heavy. Okay, heavy was the word I wanted to say. And just kind of make them a little bit light and optimist because I am an optimist astrologer, by the way. But I am also very truthful. Okay, I will say what needs to be said. But just wanted to start it on the light note. So with the moon in Sagittarius here, there's a lot of squares and oppositions, and that is a T-square, okay? It's asking for us to take a look at what is going on, right? And where the moon in Sagittarius is in the 12th house of endings, okay, of completion. Something has completed when it pertains to themes of Sagittarius. It could rule country, travel. I don't know how people might feel right now about not traveling. Maybe they just might want to travel local and not so much international because and I heard this also recently about I was going to share my other story, right, real quick about lying. I got caught in a lie when I was in elementary and I wanted to be cool around my friends. And so we were talking about catching the bus, right? And at that time we were going to the mall or something like that. And I had shared a story like, oh yeah, I went to the mall and then the bus, took us there and then the bus waited for us and then we hopped on the bus. And then one of my friends, she said, the bus doesn't wait for you. I said, "Yes, it does." And in all honesty, we didn't go on the bus. I think my friend's dad took us there. He dropped us off at the mall. And at that time, we were not allowed to take bus. We were too young to take the bus. But I wanted to be cool, like, "Yeah, I hopped on the bus." And she said, "The bus does not wait for you. It does not wait." And I got caught in a lie. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that because I actually don't did at that age, I didn't take the bus." And I just kinda said, "Yes, it does." I said, "Well, my bus did." And, of course, that was a lie, and then I felt dumb, right? And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, you should not be lying." I didn't research if why didn't since I never got the bus, I didn't think that I really thought the bus waited for you. I guess not. I guess I wanted special treatment, right? So, anyway, I got caught in a lie, and ever since then, I said, "I'm not gonna make a fool of myself. I'm not gonna lie." Or nothing like that. And so I've been pretty good, okay? Because I'm very open-minded. I'm open like a book, and I will say, yes, I do know. Yes, I do know this. No, I don't know this. Like where I was mentioning about the traders readings on my website, right? I don't know trading or the New York Stock Exchange, but I do know about the mind, okay? And a lot of it's 90% is about the mind, okay? And pretty much 10% is just putting your money on there and just looking at it, and see how it's trading. But, you know, I can still do it, but I do say I'm not s- experienced in the whole trading thing. So maybe that's something that I would have to like, invest more in or not invest more, but I just kind of learn a little bit on it. But I would just be focusing just on the neuroscience of your brain of why you're not taking chances and so forth, and we could just go based on that because we're not there. I'm not there to coach anybody about trading. But so I'm honest about that. So anyway, and for those that are interested, fine, and those that are not, that's fine. Okay, that's fine as well. So, but what's going on is that so that was the story, and I said I wasn't gonna lie anymore ever since then because I feel really dumb. And I really thought the buzz waited for us, but I guess not. So anyway, heading back to here, the 12th house of completion here for Sagittarius, where the moon is at right now. Okay. The moon right now is in the motto, I confront. So maybe there's something that you need to confront at this moment that anything that's hidden, okay, the unknown, secrets of your inner life, okay, also known the house of self undoing. And so it represents suffering, sorrow, handicaps, worries, where you have self limitations, okay? Where you limit yourself. And it could be because sickness, it could be anything like that. It could also be behind the scenes and getting involved in secret societies or cults, anywhere where there's secrets, okay? That's all the 12th house. It also rules confinement, okay, such as jails, hospitals, asylums. Okay, that all rules the 12th house. Is where you go deep and where you go retreat yourself in solitude and you voluntarily, you know, become somebody that's a loner and you decide that you need some time to yourself and do some self-care, okay? Also it rules vacations. So what I wanted to talk about also with Sagittarius is that right now we might not feel like traveling international because there's a lot of things going on international. That's why you do have to know astrocartography or get a chart reading to see if you're going to travel to a location and see where it is and also the geodetic, okay? That's very important to understand what is happening in that part of the world, and then how your DNA is aligned with that part of the world, right? And so, like, for instance, Iran, we know what's going on with the wars and stuff like that. You would be wise not to travel to Iran, unless you're, you know, daredevil and want to risk it down there, you know what I mean? But many things can happen. So you got to know where you are aligned, but it's not really recommended right now to be traveling international because these energies, these frequencies that are going on, they're going on internationally. Okay. It's not just the United States. It's not just Mexico. And it's happening all over wherever we're traveling. So you might run into situations where you might lose your passport. You might lose your carry-on bag. You might get into an argument with a tourist, or you don't know the language or anything like that. And sometimes you just wish like, gosh, why did I come over here? You know what I mean? Why did I want to try? Why couldn't I just at home? These are situations, but we got to take risks. We can't be afraid, we got to take risk. And it's through traveling that we learn, but understand that these are not the best times. Okay. These are not the best times, but if you want to be a risk taker, and especially when I see a T square, okay, especially when I see squares and I see oppositions, most likely while traveling, you're going to run into some kind of error. Or even if you're driving, you're taking a road trip, maybe you get a flat tire, hopefully not, right? But you could get a flat tire in the middle of the road somewhere in the night. And I've been in situations like that, okay? Prior to not knowing no astrology. And I don't know how I was able to do that because I would not do that today. I just rely on astrology a lot. So to make good decisions, to not get into those type of situations they've been horrible. So anyway, so the moon right now is in the 12th house of loss. So you could be losing something right now. And there's something about having to communicate it at 3 degrees right now of communication. So it is about communicating something that either has ended or maybe where you need therapy, where you need to go within, or maybe go to a hospital. If you need to go to a hospital, check yourself in there. Or maybe you need a vacation. Maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you need to go in solitude and figure yourself out in some kind of way or anything like that, right? So what's going on with the moon in Sagittarius is let's first start with the opposition, okay? The moon is opposing Uranus, okay? Uranus in Taurus, 28 degrees of real estate ancestry, and in the 6th house of your health, okay? In the 6th house of your local environment. So do pay attention to your health, okay? Do pay attention to your health and how you feel, you know, and hopefully you're feeling good. And if not, it would be wise to check in the hospital if you're not feeling that good. Uranus in Taurus is very unexpected, in Taurus, in the 6th house, okay, of your local environment, of being of service as well, of just taking care of your body. And with the moon, you might be feeling like, not feeling that good, or I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get off social media. My brain needs a break, and you're communicating it to someone. It could be a family member. It could be a neighbor. It could be somebody, or something unexpected happen in your local environment, or something unexpected happened in your health. Okay. There's some pain or some sort, and you have to take a break. Okay. You have to isolate yourself. So that's where the moon is opposing Uranus. Okay. We also have, let me see, the moon. Okay, we don't have to talk about that one. Okay, so that's the opposition. And now the squares, let's go to the squares. Okay. So that's a biggie one, the moon opposing Uranus. Okay, because that's something unexpected. That's something that comes out of nowhere. Okay, that's a curveball. What's happening here is also that the moon is squaring the South Node in Virgo. Okay. And the South Node in Virgo is coming together with Regulus. Okay. Regulus is a star that has to do with riches and fame and royalty. And it's in the sign of Virgo. and it's coming together with the South Node, something of the past. It has to do with ancestry. And where it is, where the South Node is, it's in the ninth house of higher learning, okay? In the ninth house of international, of countries. It has to do with philosophy and law and ethics and religion, okay? Faith, society. It governs higher learning, teaching, publishing, also dreams, your intuition, visions, inspiration, the ability to tap into higher levels, okay? Anything with foreign dealings, traveling, travelers, distant, import, export, the church, the spiritual factors like the clergy, grandchildren and in-laws, okay? That all has to do with the ninth house, and that is where the South Node is in Virgo. Okay, so that has to do with the past. That has to do with familiarity and our comfort zones and where we come from, our ancestry. And it has to do with anything international. And it's making a challenge with the moon in Sagittarius with what we are communicating. Okay. It could be something of the past. Okay. I know I did a little bit of communicating of the past. Maybe it wasn't received well because it's like Pandora's box, it's like, ta-da, and maybe we get more solutions through that, and I'm just tapped in because, I'm very intuitive, I'm very psychic, and I get a lot of prophetic dreams, I get a lot of downloads, and oh, and I do have to say, I did take a shower today. I don't know, I felt like I needed to take one. Not that I don't shower, okay? I do shower a lot, but I just, I just felt like, it's kind of, warm, the weather and everything. And so let me just, I don't know, I just felt like taking a shower, because we were having really great transits earlier with the Scorpio moon, really great transits. And I feel really good, like after taking a shower and, because I take spiritual baths. So like flower baths and cinnamon baths and all that. I make my own concoction of that. And so I like to always, like smell good and everything. So when I was taking a shower, I heard Atlantis, and it's so funny that because I've been running into a lot of dolphins. Not that I've been running into them, but I've been seeing a lot of videos just randomly, And then we had a couple of dolphins in our community. I've never seen dolphins there, but I think it was more towards marketing because it was Easter and everything. And so they had like 3 dolphins. They must have put them in there. And then they did a video and it was pretty cool, And I'd never been that close to dolphins that way, but I'm like, oh man, I missed that. So anyway, that has to do with Atlantis. Okay, that has to do with the seawater, the ocean, and so I heard Atlantis. Usually they say when you take showers, you're gonna hear downloads, and you get your best ideas when you take a shower. So I just said that's interesting, right? And I have this past life deck of cards, right? And very fascinating pictures on there. It's like an oracle card deck and of your past life. And so I wanted to know why I heard Atlantis. And it was talking, one of the cards that came out was persecution, the arts, which would be like Hollywood, right? Back then they didn't have Hollywood, but they had the arts. It could have been music or something. And there was it looks like it was something about I was persecuted and by the arts or the music industry or something like that. And I forgot what other card it was. It was that, and I forgot which one other. I think I pulled like 3 cards. And so, so it showed that, right? And so it was interesting because I started pulling more cards and like more, just to get more of a better idea of why that was being downloaded to me. And it was about having to, what it was, I think it was ships. There were some ships also that were coming out and something about love, having to move where there's water, where there's dolphins, where it looks like the Atlantis, right? Or maybe even travel there, you know? But it was something to do, to go there, And, it's so interesting because I've been doing I was doing some regression in my life, in my past life, and it showed that I was a nun in my past life, and I believe it. I believe it. I was a very, very religious person in my past life. And after, I at first I was not. I actually had money. I was wealthy. They say that in your past life, when you were wealthy and you come here poor. Like there's something about you have to start all over here as a poor person. And if you didn't have much money in your past life, or you were a little bit poor, maybe you went through hunger or something. In this life, you were able to make money really fast, you know? And so it's interesting, right? Because, we have to master these cycles of life. And in my past life, I was well off. Okay. I came from money. I was royal. And then here, it's been nothing but poverty. Well, it's been up and down because I've also known what it means to have money. I used to live in Arizona. That was one of my best years that I can remember throughout my business life where, I was independent. I had my own place. I had my own car. I was doing a lot of dating. It was a time where I had everything and I never had it like that. And that was because an opportunity of a career that landed was like jackpot. So it was the ability for me to move out of California and go to Arizona, which I never have moved to Arizona. It was a chance that I took and I don't regret it at all. There was a lot of lessons in that, a lot of growth. It was lifestyle, it was luxury, and I was very proud of myself for completing all that by myself. Nobody was helping me. At first, my dad did help me. He had to wire me some money because I had paid everything for my down payment, and I had to see the realtor and everything. And then I needed food. And so it was just there were some times that I knew what hardship was, eating 29 cents cheeseburger from McDonald's. But after that, it got better. So anyway, so I know what it means to have money, to lose money, and so forth, but in my past life, I had money, right? And then after all that happened, I don't know what happened, I became a nun. I think my husband left me or something. He left me with kids, with 2 kids. And I think he went out to war. We got separated. And there were people that they did not want us together. I think at that time he didn't have money, you know, and I had money. And I was even wearing a Louis Vuitton purse. And he didn't have money. He was a soldier. So he was fighting war. But then I think maybe later he found out that he was royal as well from another country. I think they didn't want us together because maybe the countries didn't get along or something, and so he had to go out to war anyway, and I was just left with 2 children, and yeah, and then I became a nun. So I don't know what happened to the children, but I became a nun, and then I was like I was controlled by authority figures. It could have been like a pope or something, because 'cause I'm just like, I don't know what's up with all this pope things in this lifetime. That there's been, like not with this current pope, I mean, I pretty much like this current pope, but I'm not Catholic anymore. But that could be another thing, not being Catholic anymore, you know what I mean? And that's a choice that I chose, because I also one of my aunts got really mad at me for not being a Catholic. It was like, "Oh my god," like I committed a sin, when I turned Christianity, and it's a very religious aunt. On more on my dad's side, but yeah, so it's just interesting, but that's my choice, and I don't turn back, and I like being Christian. But yeah, so in my past life, I think I was very controlled and managed by authority figures. It could have been popes, it could have been people at the higher food chain, and religious and so forth, and you know that's how I led my life, and then I was doing other things, like I became a healer. I think it was not allowed. I think I was burned. I was burned for doing what I was doing, like I got rebellious and I became a healer, and I was not supposed to do that kind of stuff. And because it was more into like, I think like the whole medicine, like very like Indian healing people, and it's kind of like saying, in today's world with medicine, you can't say it heals, even though it does, even though something might, for an example, is kombucha, right? Kombucha, they had labeled it there. I think the owner of kombucha bottles with Synergy, the brand Synergy, he had posted on there, on the bottles, he had labeled it that it healed his mother's cancer, right? 'Cause that's what kombucha did. And he claims that to be true. So he put it on there and they sold a lot of bottles and everything, but I guess the FDA, I don't know if it's FDA or FTC, one of them, got involved and they say he needed to take that label out because he can't say that it heals. And so they pulled all of the bottles off the shelf. I was like so upset, like, oh my gosh, because at that time, I was so addicted to kombucha. It was very healthy for me and everything. And then there was none. And they say only the last bottles that they have was in San Francisco. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go to San Francisco right now and go buy me some bottles, And they said, hurry up because they're going to run out. And the only place was San Francisco. So anyway, and lo and behold, a couple weeks, I think it was a matter of a month or two, and then they stocked them again. But this time, I think they lowered the content on there, and they took the label on there that it heals. It just now what they did was just put quotes on there. But I don't know because I don't know, they must have got away with, or they must have went to court or something because they labeled them again and it says there that it healed. So they must have fought it, in court and they won, because it was proven, I guess, that it did, and I seen some bottles and I'm like, "Oh, wow, they have the label back on there." So they had to fight it or something like that, But it's really hard to win the FTC or the FDA, okay? When it comes like that. So that's why you can't really say that, it heals or, "Oh my God, it's a miracle." But right now, nobody cares. You know what I mean? This is Aquarius and Pluto. This is a healing 19 years that we're going to have of healing. We're going to see a lot of miracles. We're going to see a lot of healing, especially with Neptune and Aries. This is miracles happen during Neptune and Aries. It's not Neptune and Pisces anymore. Okay. Now it's Neptune in Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars. Okay. So this is where we're going to see a lot of miracles in hospitals. We're going to see a lot of miracles happening in our lives when it comes to health. Okay. And especially because Mars rules fire and it's rapid healing. Okay, that happens. With Pisces, it was go with the flow. It was the 12th house of endings, of deaths, of loss. A lot of people just giving up on their bodies and stuff. No, but with Aries, oh, no, no, no. With Aries, it's like, get your ass up. You know what I mean? And it will fire your ass up, like, get up, get off that bed. You know what I mean? If you're somebody that lays around. I wish I could do that. I don't really have time to do that, but but I have been trying to force myself to take siestas, right? Siestas are actually in Mexico and in Spain, and I think in Germany, they do that. So what they do is they take breaks, even if it's like half an hour or 45 minutes, just to rest the body and then, continue on. Because this year we're having a lot of fire, It is the fire horse. It is a 1 year, okay, initiation of taking action. We got the Neptune and Saturn in Aries, which is fire. Jupiter's going to jump in leg in leg. Jupiter is going to jump into Leo, which is fire. And then Uranus is going to jump into Gemini. Oh my gosh. Fire and air. Wow. Yeah. So it's going to be something else, and so we're just barely starting 2026. It's April, but towards summer is going to be very interesting, let me tell you. Very, very interesting. So, but I feel it's going to be optimistic. I don't feel depression this year because we have so much fire. When you have too much fire, it's hard to get depressed. Okay. It's hard to, unless you got some major, major karma and you're meeting some major, major karmic times. So, I'm just looking at just the planets and anything you do with your business is going to fire up. It's going to go fast. Okay. So if it's going slow, don't expect it to continue that way. Okay. It's going to go fast. It might be numbers might start getting much faster because of the frequency of the energy. Okay. So it doesn't just impact the frequency around the collective, but it's in the work that you're doing. We're able to manifest faster, okay? And I'm being patient, and I'm just doing my podcast, and I'm going to be doing it I'm gonna try to do it every single day, but if not, maybe 3-4 times a week, and in both English and Spanish. Because I know in the Spanish, I know sometimes when I do a Spanish podcast, I'm like, God, that was so needed. And I just feel it, for those that are listening to it around the world, I know that they know that it was so needed, because these are things that they don't know, okay? These are things that very important information, okay? That's cost a lot of money, but I'm doing it because I am serving the collective. And, you get to have an hour with me. I'm trying to shorten them up and just trying to do them 45 minutes, only because, it does take a lot of time, and I just want to just shorten them up, and that way, let's see what happens with that. But I'm trying different techniques here. So that's what's happening there with the South Node, okay? And Regulus. Something, when the South Node and Regulus comes together of riches and fame and royalty, there's some royal themes that are coming up with Virgos or with people that serve, okay, that protect and serve. Something to do internationally, okay? It's not just where you come from, it's the whole collective, internationally. So, but there's a challenge there with the moon in Sagittarius of some kind of loss, some kind of ending that you just have to let go. It might be, I don't know, it might be somebody, it might be a celebrity, right? Because they rules celebrities as well. Let's look at here. So we talked about that one, and then the moon. Now let's talk about the trine here. The moon is trining gold, okay? It also was trining gold with the moon in Scorpio. And so, but when the moon is Sagittarius, it has to do with countries, international, languages, all of that. And it's making a harmonious trine. It's in harmony with gold. Okay, so those that are traders, those that are investors in gold, it's a good time, you know or just anything that you feel that it's like magnetic, and it's golden, right? It's a good thing for that, especially it's in the eighth house. I mean, it's in the eighth house of transformation, okay? And the motto there is we have. That's where gold is, and according to some research that I've been doing, not really research, but I just run into information sometimes. And while I'm in X, and there's a book about the United States and astrology and what has happened throughout the years. And I think is it this year? I think it's this year or next year. I think it's next year where yeah, it's next year where they're gonna find gold, or dating back to, we're talking about like 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. They found gold under the same aspects that we're gonna have next year. So we could, since right now, it is making a trine with gold, there could be the discovery of gold coming next year, okay, on the year of the goat. So that is interesting there, but for right now, the moon in Sagittarius that has to do with countries, it is in harmony with gold. Maybe there's gold in other countries, okay? Maybe something to do with gold bars in other countries. Certain countries already have gold, right? I think, what is it? Russia? I think Russia has gold already. And I think other parts of maybe the UK or some other areas, they already have gold. Wealthy people have gold. So there could be something to that with when it comes to countries, with the moon in Sagittarius. Let's see. Now let's go to these trines here. The moon is making a trine right now to Saturn. So that's a pretty big one. Saturn has to do with billionaires, politics, investors, okay? And it's in the sign of Aries. It's in the 6th degree of health, your 6th degree of your local environment. And it is in the 4th house of real estate, okay? And there is I belong, okay? And so the moon is getting along very well with Saturn, okay, in I belong, right? So where do you belong? Where do you feel that you fit in? Where do you feel that you belong? I mean, a lot of people right now are moving. They have intentions of moving, or they're trying to manifest a move or as of some sort. And I feel a lot of people are going to start moving a lot. Okay, especially when Uranus enters Gemini, we're going to see a lot of movement. We've seen it when the North Node was in Gemini. And, the North Node has to do with what's fated. It has to do your destiny, where you travel in, right? And where it's foreign is not familiar. And I remember when the North Node was in Gemini, there was a lot of people moving. And that was like after COVID and so forth. People from New York were moving to California. People from California were moving to like all kinds of places. And so it was just interesting how there was so much movement. And so, yeah. And now with Uranus in Gemini, it's even more unexpected, right? Maybe you're not even going to expect to move and all of a sudden you moved, you know, as you had to move, right? For the betterment of you, of your family, or maybe, because of jobs, maybe there's lack of jobs where you live or something like that. And you move to a better area where there's more opportunity. Another thing too here, it is, yeah, Saturn, that one's big. It's also making a trine here to banks. Okay. So that's a good one. This is banks. Is that still at the 4th degree? There is this holding on to money when it comes to banks, just kind of being a little bit more disciplined when it comes to money. They're not really handing it out like that. It's not so easy to get a loan approved or something like that. So there is some kind of just control, I would say, when it comes to banks, especially for those that are trying to get a loan mortgage or anything like that. And I think it's because of the economy that we're going through, everything that we're going through. And so that's what's happening there, but it's in harmony. Okay. It's not a square, it's a trine. So there is harmony there, but it just kind of reminds me of Walt Disney. He wanted that loan and he wanted that loan and he was very persistent and very determined to get that loan. And they didn't believe in his idea of a mouse. And, they thought he was crazy or nuts that he wanted so much money because he had an idea of a mouse and he wanted to convert it into Disneyland, right? They didn't see the vision, but Walt did, right? So he had to convince them and he had to work really hard to convince them. So it's that kind of situation. And I don't know why I brought him up because he was, I think, a Sagittarius. I think he was a Sagittarius. And the moon's a Sagittarius. So maybe I'm picking up something there. Another thing, too, is that the moon is making a trine also to Neptune. And Neptune's in Aries. That has to do with vision. Speaking of Walt Disney, right? Visionaries, it is talking about art, music, anything like that. It's at 2 degrees of wealth. So there's something about money to be made in art, in maybe painting, maybe music. I, I don't really talk much about music because we know where it's heading. And it's not very supportive and stuff, but I do try to support some new music comers. I've been listening a lot to like female type of like influencer type of music when it comes to females, and these are new upcomers. I never heard of them before, but they have some really cool music about like, feeling like a boss and making money. And because that's what the Gen Z and the millennials, that's what they're into. They're into making money, and any music that you listen to, about making money and manifestation, and I just buy my car, I just buy my house, I just, it's all manifestation, right? And I like it because it doesn't, it's not very graphic music, it doesn't speak bad. It's very ambitious, and you keep repeating those lyrics and they're going to go to your head and you're going to buy that car, you're going to buy that house. And this is why a lot of young people are making a lot of money, and a lot of it has to do with the influence of the music that they're listening to, and I really enjoy the music. I mean, if I don't like the lyrics, I'm just not going to listen to it. But I'm trying to be supportive in that, where the more younger generation, where it's music that I will listen to. I can wake up, like there's one of my great songs right now that I think I have it on repeat is Lemonade, right? Is Lemonade, and the other one is, I think, Pretty Girl Era. I'm in my Pretty Girl era. Oh, I love that song. And it just talks about being pretty and, waking up, making money and all this. And it's just such an upbeat song that I can put it on my headset and then I could be making my coffee and so forth. I notice a lot of it is like very 70s. It has like, even like Bruno Mars, he came out with a new single. I really like that one too. But again, Bruno Mars makes good music. I don't think he's ever had a bad record or anything like that, but I really like his new record. It's really cool. So, and he never talks bad about women, you know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't. And I love that about him. He's a Libra, by the way. So anyway, this is Neptune rules, music, film, and the arts, all of that manifestation, visionary, being a visionary, also your beliefs and your faith. Okay. And it's in the sign of Aries of having to take action, because we know if you don't take action, you don't have faith, right? Or you don't believe in what you're doing if you don't take action, if you're just sitting there, right? And you're not doing anything about it. So there it is there. And that's at 2 degrees of wealth. Okay. And I do have to say, if you are a Pisces, we're dealing with the second house, okay, of wealth and self-esteem and self-confidence and, you know, pretty much high value and real estate. Okay. So for us with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, for us that are Pisces and Pisces risings, we're dealing with the second house of money, of wealth, of real estate, of self-confidence. And so it's a good thing if you teach money, you're able to make a lot of money here, with the second house of wealth, especially right now, the second degree of wealth, right? And if it's not money, then it's, confidence. Maybe you have confidence and you're trying to teach other females of how to have more confidence. That's a great thing for Pisces. And it's because of the experience that we've gone through, and we're able to teach it now, right? What we did to overcome this, what we did to glow, what we're doing, what we're using, how are we taking care of our body? How are we, taking care of our hair? How are we, things like that. So that's really good here with the moon in Sagittarius that is making a trine. It's in harmony. Let me see here. Trying to see. So the moon is making opportunity with Juno. Juno just jumped into Aquarius. It has to do with marriages. So it's getting along very well. Maybe there might be marriages, partners that they might want to travel together, because the moon in Sagittarius has to do with traveling. Or it might be you might be traveling and you meet the love of your life. I don't know. It could be something like that. The moon also I did talk about gold there. I talk about banks. And it looks like that's it. I don't want to make it that long. Well, it's already at 45 minutes. But I just wanted to, I do want to talk about the moon right now that is making an opportunity with Pluto. Okay, that one is deep. That one, you could feel it really deep. And maybe that's why I can't sleep, because I am going to try to sleep, but I'm taking my melatonin gummies. I'm just so energetic. I've been taking this drink that energizes me and gives me self-confidence, and I'm not doing it for that, but I'm doing it actually because it's good for me, because I need energy. But it has on there 5-HTP, which is good for your neural brain. and to be positive in a world that is nothing but wars, And if you can take something that is natural, and helps you lose weight as well, it curbs your appetite. That's what it does. But it makes you really thirsty. And so it's good because if you don't drink a lot of water, it makes you drink water. And it has magnesium and it's just really healthy. And we need magnesium in our lives and so forth, and zinc and all that. But I get really energized, and at night it's like, I think I feel energized because the moon's in Sagittarius. That's why. The moon also, when it's in a fire sign, it's hard to go to sleep. It is. It is hard to go to sleep. So, but I'm going to take my melatonin gummies and hopefully that can knock me out, put me to sleep. But the moon right now with Pluto, okay, is forming an opportunity. Pluto is in Aquarius and it's in the second house of wealth, of money. Yeah, it's in the house of I have. Okay, what do you have? And so it's about earning power and money, as well as movable possessions. Okay, your resources, your ability to acquire what you feel you need. Okay, it represents self worth, your sense of values, the gains and the losses we experience through our own efforts. So, second house encompasses our material depth and how we express our values by how we choose to live. Okay, the abilities we develop as a way of establishing ourselves in the world. So there it is there with Pluto in Aquarius. Okay. And when we have money, we have a good high self esteem, right? And sometimes when we don't, we might not feel so good, but money is not everything, right? Of course, we need money, but it eases our life, right? But what is very important is our health. What is very important is how we live our lives. And yeah, I'm hearing right now too much projections. Like too much projections from who? I know it's not me because I'm not trying to project anything. I feel it's other people that they've been doing too many projections, like trying to project. Yeah, but you gotta be self-confident in yourself to not let it get to you, okay? And so maybe that's a topic I need to talk about, self-projection and how to overcome it. Because what I do when they try to self-project into me, I'm like, "No, that doesn't go well with me," okay? I do not relate to that, you know, and you don't have to accept it, alright? You could reject it and send it back, and also, it's interesting because I just purchased a bell because I heard about bells, right? As a matter of fact, when I was going through my dark shadow, I was hearing a lot of downloads from my ancestors that told me that I needed to buy. There's this string and it has a lot of little tiny bells on it, and you hang it, right? And every time the bells move, like spirit moves, like it moves away bad energy. And in Spanish, they're called cascabeles or cascabelas. No, cascabeles. Los cascabeles. Yeah, that's what it's called. And it comes from Spain. And one of my ancestors came through and told me I needed to buy cascabeles, right? And I was like, what is that word? And, because I didn't know what it was until I Googled. This is before ChatGPT. And it said there it's that string with a bunch of bells on there, and then you could hang it in, and that's, I guess at that time I had a lot of haters, a lot of enemies. And you hang it in your house, and you just, it moves away with it moves with the wind, and it moves all, if if your house is maybe haunted or your house has bad spirits, or just anything that just doesn't, it feels off, what it does, those little bells, it moves it all away. I never bought them, but it was something that was downloaded to me that I should buy. But what I did recently purchase was a bell, and I'm excited about that bell. It's a metal bell made out of, it's a gold bell that I bought. I've actually bought it at TikTok, and they have a bunch of bells, and you just ring the bell, and what it does is it protects you, and you always have to be protected. It's not that I'm like overly protecting myself, but I do love bells and I love to ring them. And that's what they do, in church, and especially in Catholic church, right? They ring a lot of bells. That's a ritual that they do. The New York Stock Exchange, they ring the bell, right? You could ring it for celebrations, you could ring it just because, or you want to say a statement and then you ring the bell, as a form of confirmation of what you're saying. In other words, you could be like, or manifesting things and say, you know, I am enough just as I am, ding, 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 and ring the bell. You know what I mean? So that's like confirmation, right? And the reason I'm seeing that is because it's on my vision board, because I bought a vision board book and it had it on there on the cutout. So I really liked what it says. It says, I am enough just as I am, deserving of love and respect, right? And so I have it there in my vision board. And that's why I read it from far. So I'm looking at it right now. But it's just an example, and then just kind of ringing the bell as confirmation. It is so. Or just walking around your house and just ring it everywhere. I know I'm going to be doing that. And yeah, so I'm probably gonna go bell crazy, but yeah, I like it. So I'm very excited for that purchase. And so anyway, basically what I see right now is I did mention on X that I seen drama. And when there is a T square, there is drama. Okay. Because there's an opposition here and then there's a square, right? And you need to take care of the opposition and then the square at the same time. So, it's about strategy of how do I overcome this energy, especially with Uranus, where it's making, it's making an opposition with Uranus, the moon, and then, it's making squares over here with let me look at the chart here again. It's making squares with the North Node and the South Node. Okay. So, when the moon's in Sagittarius and when it's a mutable sign. And so what that means is that Sagittarius, Geminis, Pisces, and Virgos, they're all being impacted when the moon's in Sagittarius. Okay. Because it's making a square to you or in opposition, you know, and it's squaring the North Node. And I didn't talk about the North Node here, but let me see. The North Node here is in the third house of communication, okay, in the sign of Pisces. So it might be a Pisces like me that is saying things, is communicating. It's probably, maybe there's a Sagittarius that doesn't like that or something, but who cares, right? I'm not controlled by nobody and only by God, and I'm going to say what I have to say. It could be a little bit of envious on the Sagittarius of maybe my numbers growing, or you know how it is, right? But like I said, I'm not going to receive any projections or anything. I'm confident in what I do. I do my work and boom, put it out there, and that's it. And that's what I do. I just have too much confidence. I have too much confidence in myself and in God, because I have God in my life. And I'm not going to be intimidated by anybody that's trying to mess up my work, mess up my podcast, or anything like that, because they might not know Spanish. They might have a Hispanic last name, but they don't know Spanish, if you know what I mean. So, it could be, you know, I'm just going to stop there. I'm just not going to continue on. But yeah, it's making a square with the North Node, with the South Node, making an opposition with Uranus, the unexpected. So it could be a little bit problematic there. It's making opportunity with Pluto over here, with what's being communicated. Maybe people are listening to what you are communicating and making decisions based on that. Okay. Especially if you're somebody that's respected, which I am. So anyway, this is what we got going on. If you guys are listening to it tonight, I wasn't sure about putting it because I don't want to put worry into people's minds before they go to sleep. But there is some positivity to this, where it is making a trine to Saturn, which is stability and power and protection, and it also can rule God. So it's a good time to open the Bible, pray a little before you go to sleep, drink some water or something, and tomorrow we wake up and it's another day. So tomorrow I will do another podcast, and I hope you guys are having a great night. And if you enjoyed the podcast, do like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends, because we just started here on Podbean, and I want to be able to podcast more episodes, okay, that is going to affect the world. And because that's what I talk about, it's not just the United States. I do talk about things that might be happening around the world that can be impactful when it comes to global economies, what is happening in your town, what is happening around the world, and things that you might not know. Okay. So it's wise to listen to the podcast because it is free. You don't have to pay for it. And you can strategize based on that and be a wise decision maker. So I will talk to you guys on the next episode. Good night.